The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations, that's foreign and foreign.
Good morning and welcome back to the Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Lowe's Moore, and I'm excited to be back with you guys. Hey, look, my apology. I'm not going to apologize. Yeah, no. I was on vacation. Yes, right? Yeah, me and my wife was on vacation in Costa Rica, right? And over the last 3 years, we've been vacationing with our oldest daughter, her husband, and my two grandkids, and it's been amazing. We've been to first we started out in Cancun, yes, and then we went to the Dominican Republic. Right, and now Costa Rica, and I think next year is Jamaica. So we've been traveling with the grandkids. It's been amazing, and you know, I like Costa Rica. I mean, it was a little too when they say that there's a wildlife, right? Believe it when they say it. I mean, you know, believe it when they say wildlife. When you're talking about monkeys. And you talking about like iguanas, and you talking about everywhere you walk there's something. And the man, you know, on that Thursday night, man, everybody's fired up to go to the steakhouse, man, and a raccoon turned out the steakhouse. It was crazy. I mean, people leaving out of there, man, and you know, everybody's getting up, leaving their food, and I had just bit into my salmon, man, and my salmon was. My salmon was so good, man.
How good was it?
I was eating on the run. And I was like, I was eating on the run. I was getting that last bit of salmon in, you know, and then somebody was talking about there were snakes outside, you know, but we had an amazing vacation. And for the first time in the history of the Blueprint Podcast, I came home and I didn't do a podcast, and I did a flashback. I hope you guys enjoyed the flashback, man. I got a lot of comments. People act like, man, I interviewed Denzel like last week or something. I mean, you know, people was texting me, you know, hey man, that was a great show, and we did it about maybe 2 years ago. We did that podcast, but it was so relevant. You know, the conversation we had was so relevant. He was so open. If you can get a chance to check it out, make sure you do. And then the week before that, I had my good friend. Look at that picture, man. How can you beat that? You can't beat that, man. Woo! I wish I was in that water right now. But hey, we getting back to reality. You know, the reality is that we're back home in New York, and you know, as soon as we landed, I mean, I can't even begin. They almost canceled we left Friday. They almost canceled the plane flight, right, for mechanical difficulties. And I'm like, what? Because, you know, only JetBlue flies in and into New York. So that means you got wherever you go, if you get another airlines, you stopping somewhere. You stopping in Miami, you stopping in Charlotte, right? But you stopping, right? And then they finally got it together. But then we got to Charlotte, and then we had a 14-hour layover. I mean, it was like crazy. But fortunately, my wife had family there, and we spent the night, jumped on the plane, and got back to New York. And then the next morning, we jumped up. I was being honored. I didn't know if I was going to make it. I was being honored in Albany, New York. You know, shout out to them. We got in the car and drove up there. Got honored. For some work that I did. You know, I played with the Albany Patroons in Albany, New York back in the day. And then while I was there, we created the Hoop School, where we were trying to do life skills, education preparation. You know, our motto was go for your dreams, but only education creates choices, right? And it was good for me because it seemed like the hoop school worked because many of the guys that were there kept saying, "You remember me? I was in your clinic. I was in your camp. I was in your skull session. I was, they just kept saying and taking pictures with me and stuff like that." So
and
when
then, if I'm not mistaken, the young man who they were honoring, Jamel Tarver, he was a young man who had died of a heart attack playing ball.
yeah, he loved basketball.
He was in your.
He was in my hoop school, and he had died of a heart attack playing basketball, and they were honoring him that day. And he was in my hoop school. He loved ball. He loved his family, and he was developing his family, and his kids gonna truly miss him. But it was an amazing time seeing so many people from the past. But we are back, and one of the things I was thinking about during the course of the week was that we've already seen since the beginning of August, we started seeing back to school. Right, man. We miss it and we don't miss it. Because this is the time where we had 4 kids and we'd be trying to find clothes and getting books and all that kind of stuff like that. Well, now our kids.
Back then, they didn't have like all this online shopping as they had.
Oh
now.
Yeah, you gotta go to the store.
Go to Staples or Target and we stand in line for like 25, 30, 40 minutes just to get stuff.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. But now we get to see our kids, right? Our kids doing that for their kids. And
but it's easy. Let me tell you something. It's easy for them, right? Because, like I said.
Yeah, you got Amazon.
Yeah, right. You don't even have to go to the store.
You got Targets. You don't even have to go to Staples online. Walmart, right? People getting you stuff free. But anyway, it's back to school, and let me say this before I move on, because I've been saying this for years in regards to now we're talking about like going back to school, right? No longer pandemic, right? And pandemic was crazy. We were struggling in terms of our community, our culture. Our young people were struggling over the years and academically, right? And reason why I bring it up, because in my book, From the Boys and Girls Club to the NBA, Life on the Narrow Road, that's 2 things I mentioned in the very beginning, is the importance and power of family, right? We all have functional families and dysfunctional parts of our family, right? But they're still our family and we love them, right? Some people, we just say, okay, we got to leave them alone. But let them just be dysfunctional, pray for them and help them if you can. And then there's the other part that's functional. I mean, I have to say I had a wonderful summer. I've never been to more family reunions than I did this summer. Just engaging with family. It's just powerful. And I'm thankful to my family, that helped to support me, helped to grow me. I'm thankful for not only my blood family, but I'm thankful for my church family, right? And I'm thankful for the family that I built, like teachers, coaches, people that mentored me, Boys and Girls Club, the counselors, right? The directors that helped me become who I am, right? And I think that's important. And one of the things I learned, as I was journeying towards my dream as an NBA player, wanting to be an NBA player, I learned something. May he rest in peace, Mr. James Jones, right? He taught me some things, right? And I'll say just one of them. The thing is, he said to me one day after the season, he said, "Lowe's, you don't get better during the season." Right? You're in the season. You're trying to win games. Coaches are practicing you, right? It's hard to improve your skills as an individual, right, during the season. He said where you accelerate or where you grow is during the summertime. It's the summertime is when you put in the most work, right? And when he mentioned that to me, but he didn't just he didn't just say, okay, well, just go do it on your own. right, during the course of the summertime, right, he brought individuals. He knew what my weaknesses were number one, reading comprehension, math, test taking skills, math skills, right? He knew that. But during the summertime, he would have people come in and they would assist me for a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours a week, right? As I worked on my academic skills during the summertime. And what I had noticed was that my academics increased during the school year when we went back to school. Right. And they would always give me stuff like if I was in the 7th grade, they will always work for me from the premise of 8th grade. Right. So they said, hey, look, if you can read an 8th grade book, if you can write something about an 8th grade book, if you can do your 8th grade math stuff, right, it's going to cause an acceleration, right, in you in the following year, because now you're going to 7th grade. But, man, you've been working all summer on 8th grade stuff. Right. And it worked for me. And I believe it still worked. And I tell kids this all the time. Right. Living where you're going. Right. If you're in 7th grade, you should be working on 8th grade stuff. Right. If you're in high school, you should be thinking about what college is like. Right. And so I was saying to my granddaughter, right, who's in the 6th grade, and I noticed that over the years, one of the important things that we did during the summertime, we had summer programs, we had summer camp, right? We had those things during the summertime. Yeah, the kids love going swimming, trips, recreating, all the games that we played during the course of the summertime. Yeah, they love that stuff. But one of the things that we pride ourselves on, we told families, look, every year you guys get a packet. You get a list of books that you should read during the summertime. You have a summer package that you have to work on. And so we said to the parents, look, hey, if your kid is in the camp, right, for those 6-8 weeks, we're going to work with them to make sure they complete their packages. So when they go back to school, their packages would be complete. And then we had drop everything and read, right? So every now and then we would just drop everything and they would have to take out the book that they were scheduled to read during the summertime. They would take out that book and read it. And then later on in the week, we would make sure they were doing a writing assignment about what they just read. Right. So we tried to help people grow during the summertime. And I noticed this summer that this doesn't happen anymore. I mean, this is even before the pandemic, before I retired from the Boys and Girls Club, kids were no longer getting packages and getting reading assignments. So you're going to go from when school gets out in June, right? It gets out in June, particularly in Mount Vernon, get out in June. You're not going to do anything from June. You're not going to do anything in July. You're not going to do anything in August. And all of a sudden, we're going to wake up and say, it's back to school time. Right? So we want to talk this morning. We want to have a conversation around, right, the state of education in America, in the USA. Right? We want to talk to those things because, man, pandemic just we were already struggling, right? But then the pandemic hit. Now we're talking not only just the academic side of it, learning, right? But we're also talking about the mental side of it, the impact on what happens when you can't be social, right? And then when being social, what are you doing with the ability to be social? Is it around just recreating, having a good time, or is it around that I'm going to look at my future? I'm going to develop my future, right? I'm going to develop my goals to figure out what I'm going to do in regards to higher education. Right. So that's what we want to deal with this morning. So let's jump right into it. I want to jump right into my books of the week. Right. Let's check out my books of the week. And one of my favorite authors of all time, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, he got an African name, but a Christian brother. Right. We've had him several times in Mount Vernon, New York, come up, and he did his talk on the conspiracy to destroy black boys, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right. And then he's come out with some, and I used to tell teachers, right? Teachers and educators, do y'all know Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu? Because then as a teacher and educator, right, the system is giving you stuff that you should read. Right. But sometimes we don't read black authors or black educators.
Right.
right? So I talked to him. I said, tell a teacher or a counselor, do you know Dr. Juwan Zukunjufu? And most of them wouldn't know. And you know what the thing is? Even if I told them, they wouldn't go get it.
No. And his book, To Be Popular is Smart.
Oh, man.
It's really powerful.
That's my favorite.
Yeah,
And you know why? Because your father...
my daddy.
Your dad turned me on Dr. Juwan Zukunjufu, and he gave me that book. Because most of the time in our culture, we love to be popular. We just don't want to be smart.
Right. So much embarrassing for some people to be smart. I was a nerd. I'm still a nerd. I'm proud to be a nerd.
Hey, sometimes nerds have more fun.
But I was also popular.
Yeah, you were popular too. And so the crazy thing is, inside the book, I'll say this little statement about inside that book, right? That if you spoke the King's English, if you spoke English well, right, and to be popular or to be smart, if you spoke it well, they call you white. Speaking well is not white. Speaking well is speaking well.
Period.
I mean, being able to get up and spell words and put words into sentences and to do all those things, to do things correctly is right, not white.
Right.
Everybody should be doing it. So
I remember one time somebody said to me, "Your kids talk like they're from Pelham."
Well, we from Mount Vernon.
And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So go back to those books again.
Yes, sir.
And these are just tools that you can get tools, but you got to use them, right? Motivating and preparing Black youth to work, right? And then 100+ educational strategies for children of color, developing positive self-images and discipline in Black children, and keeping Black boys out of special education. Wow. Four very powerful book in there, and there is more. And then here is...
You got some intense comments, so hold on.
Okay.
I just want to see. Pastor Charles Clayton said, when we returned to school after they were shut down, we realized that the student had lost 2 years of learning. It made a huge difference in the student's ability to read. Reading is in every subject, so you can imagine the level of illiteracy due to the schools closing. Absolutely.
Right.
And then your sister wrote, or should I say our sister?
Our sister.
Dad gave me a lot of books too. He was such a scholar. He loved to discuss books. We had our own book club, and my kids do it now. Absolutely. Dad was like, he wrote poetry, he taught English as well as being an assistant principal. He taught English at Mercy College. So he was definitely a reader. And I remember when he passed away and I went to the house and there were tons of books. All over the place that he had read.
Yeah.
With notes. And it wasn't, they weren't crisp paged. They were books that you could tell were read because they had notes inside of them.
Yeah. And so that's on the show. We've been talking about this for 5 years now. This is our 5th season, and we've been doing these books, right? Because that was my weakness, right? Growing up, that was my weakness, was the ability to read, the ability to comprehend what I was reading, and it made me afraid. It wasn't that I realized it wasn't that I couldn't read, right? But I was not getting the proper instructions in order to be able to do that. And once I did, then I was able to excel in all the other things that I wanted to do. But if you can't read and you can't write, I always say you can't have, here's a ball in this hand, right? Well, and here's a book. You can't do one without the other. You can't dance without educating yourself, man. You can't do anything without educating yourself and becoming more knowledgeable, right? And so, one of the things we pride ourselves on here each and every week is to talk about reading comprehension. Book. What's your favorite book? You should be reading. If anybody's thinking about going to higher education, you should be reading. Man, this summer, a person that's thinking about being a student athlete or a student going to college, they should have read at least a book a week. Right? They should be reading a book a week, right, in order to accelerate themselves so they can prepare themselves for higher education, right? And that's just me, but I know that it works. So here's my word of the week. Yeah, word of the week. Knowledge is power.
Phrase.
Right? Knowledge is power. Knowledge. Right? You got to have knowledge. That's my word of the week. And here's my Pierce Harper affirmation moment. Right? And this is Eric Thomas, motivational speaker. Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. So you can have knowledge, but if you can't apply it, like if you can read, that was one of the things at the Boys and Girls Club. A lot of young men that I used to have in my passport to manhood, you tell them to read this paragraph, and they could read that paragraph. But if you say, what did that paragraph say? Right? They couldn't tell you what the paragraph said. Right? So it's not only just reading, but it's reading comprehension. That's the real key. Right? So, and then here's my music and movie, KRS-One. Right, back in the day, man, he used to throw down some stuff, right? He used to throw stuff in history, knowledge, violence, songs against violence and different things like that, right? He did well, but, those who were throwing out negative words, negative rap, right, got paid, right? And some of these guys that are throwing out knowledge in their rap didn't get paid. Right, and then here's my movies of the week. Of course, Denzel's Washington, Hard's Lesson, the George McKenna story, Lean on Me with Joe Clark, Freedom Riders, and Denzel and the Great Debaters.
Ooh, that's a powerful movie list right there.
And if you know any other music, right, that addresses the issues of education, history, right, pop it on. Right, if you know there's another movie that somebody should be watching, popping on around education, because there's a lot of wonderful things out there. So, and then I picked my person of the week.
See who you got. Oh.
The First Lady, Jill Biden. Okay. Right, I've been listening to some things she's been talking about on education and stuff like that, man, and some things she's been doing in, in different cultures and different countries. And she's for education, right? And so she's my person of the week. And then let me just jump right in. I got some shout outs real quick before I get to my guests.
Did you want to show that Jill video now or later?
We show a little bit later because it's a little bit lengthy there. So,
okay. So your birthday shout outs, let's see what you got. You got some comments, so let's just throw them in.
Okay, let's see the comments.
Dee Dee said she changed the reading list at school. She rejected books. I rejected books my kids, especially that my son could not relate to. That's powerful, KRS is a hip hop pioneer. He lived at the shelter on Franklin Avenue in the Bronx. Always dropped knowledge. Wow, that's powerful. I didn't know that.
Yes.
And then from Pastor Clayton, I think communities are missing the atmosphere where they are exposed to many things. That's what you allowed me to witness when you hired me as a music teacher at the club. There was indoor and outdoor activities going on every summer, and reading was a part of those activities. We need those things to happen today.
Yeah. You remember that? Charlie would remember deer. It's deer time, and that horn would blow. Woo! Drop everything and read. That's what deer mean. Yeah, so listen, I think we got some other birthday shout outs.
Yeah, we got a birthday shout out, a couple of birthday shout outs. Let's see what we got here.
Happy heavenly birthday to Ernie Monroe. I mean, this dude was the second coming of Bill Cosby. I mean, Ernie was amazing, man. He unfortunately he passed away during the pandemic, man. We truly missed him. My brother Curtis' best friend, right? I mean, we miss you, Ernie, man, because he was the life of the party, man. Anytime he walked in, man, we knew we was going to have a good time. Right?
Yeah, I remember the last time I saw him, we were at Kurt's house, and he wanted to get something to eat, so I was like, you want me to make you a plate, right? So he said, yes, I had made him this plate. He goes, just remember, I'm allergic to shrimp. I'm allergic to this, and I had to make him this whole plate. Then I had to make him a plate to take home with him, but... like I remember, I'm walking around and he was like doing this. I said, look, I'm married to Lowe's, right? And but I took care of him because he's like our brother,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I thank God. And that was unfortunately, that must have been 2019 because the pandemic didn't happen until 2020. So that happened. That had to happen.
No, it was we were down there during the pandemic.
So then it would have been 2020.
20, yeah.
Yeah.
20 and 21, yeah.
That's in 1983. Our next birthday shout out is somebody very dear to us.
Dakari. That's my son.
Yes.
Yeah, happy birthday. Yeah, he got a little awakening. You know, I ain't gonna say how old he is. You know, I was talking the other day. We were on in Costa Rica together, and we met a young couple out there on the beach, and we were talking, and come find out she was from the Bronx and he was from Mount Vernon, and he talked about his dad, and then he just happened to mention, he said, "Yeah, I think your son-in-law went to school with my dad." I mean, that's a sign you getting old, right?
Takari had a meltdown.
Yeah, he's like, "What? He didn't say he went to school with me. He said he went to school with his dad." I'm like, that's a telltale sign that you have gotten older.
He said, "My dad was born in 1978. Takari was like, "Well, I was born in 1979. We probably doing a whole lot of things together."
Oh man, yeah, that's good. It's a good sign you still here.
Listen,
there's a good sign you still here. So I'm saying happy birthday.
Takari married our daughter, and they gave us two beautiful
grandkids,
Dakota and Hartley. And just as a side, we didn't put this up, but Dakari and the Firemen of Mount Vernon put out a fireman's calendar filled with muscles.
Yeah, maybe you can find that and we'll put it up towards the end of it. Let's get rolling here. Let's get rolling. You got any more?
I have no more shout outs.
Oh, no more shout outs?
I want to say happy birthday to my niece Calais.
Calais.
I didn't put her up because her parents don't really do social media and stuff like that. But Calais turned 4 years old this week, and she has a sister named Laven, and she's got a brother coming soon in February to it.
Ooh, he's trying to catch up with us.
Yeah, he's gonna catch up with us. He's catching up with Dee and us, and my brother was the last to become a grandparent, and he is working.
Yeah, he's working his way through.
Working his way to the top.
Yeah.
So we can get rolling. So would you like a video, or you want to just bring your first guest?
Yeah, I'll put up the video real quick.
All right, let's do this. And which Skylearn?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
Once a student gets behind in reading or math, it's hard to catch up, especially when they don't have access to the tools that can truly help them. That's why at Skylearn, we've made it our mission to elevate the academic performance of every K-12 student, regardless of social-economic background, by promoting technology-based solutions that are affordable, scalable, and evidence-based. I invite you to check out the proven reading and math tools described in our website. Give your students what they need to succeed now as they continue along their learning journey.
Yes, I want to welcome to the Blueprint Podcast this morning, Jesse Overton. He's rubbing his eyes because he's in Minnesota. He's only an hour, but evidently he does not get up early on Saturdays. I mean, he may have earned that right not to get up early on Saturday. But Jesse, welcome to the Blueprint, man. It's been a while, right? And when I was thinking about the state of education in the USA or in the United States of America, and kids going back to school, I thought of you guys, man. And some of the conversation as kids were going back, I was thinking about the many kids that I asked during the course of the summertime, are you reading during the summertime? I mean, what are you doing academically during the summertime? Of course, they was playing video games and different things like that. So I wanted to bring you on Skylearn. Before you say something, I want to say thank you to you and Bill Henry, right? Who's going to pop on shortly, particularly Bill calling me and then you guys getting together, actually coming up to when I was the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, coming up to the Boys and Girls Club and introducing me to this Skylearn and the programs that you guys had. We had the opportunity to have what 30, 40 kids, I think 50 kids on SkyLearn, and a lot of them improve tremendously during that span of time, and you guys are still at it, right? And you're still going. I mean, there was a struggle before the pandemic,
Correct.
right? And then there's a struggle coming out during the pandemic, and then coming out and with kids catching up. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for you and Bill as well, and helping me, enhance my programming and support of families at the Boys and Girls Club of Mount Vernon. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Lowe's and Mrs. Moore and the family of all that are listening. I'm just honored for this opportunity to update you on what we've been up to. I had my 74th birthday this year,
Ah,
and I have 3 grandchildren since we last spoke.
Three is the
Twin
number.
boy, twin,
3 is a number.
yeah, twin boys and one older son named after me.
Right.
And I want to just start there that my mission in life started long before I was born. My great grandfather, Hiram, Nashville, Tennessee, could not read or write. He signed his name with an X. And upon emancipation, he opened one of the first schools for us in Middle Tennessee and put his own kids in it. He told his last son, whom I'm named after, Jesse, his requirement was that he give his children a better education than he was able to provide. My grandfather had a 6th grade education, and he was a Mason, and he made it possible for my father to go to Meharry Medical College after completing his work at Fisk University. My father's last words to me in 1968, that was the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated, was, "I'm holding you to the same standard that my grandfather held my father to, and that is make sure you give your kids a better education than I'm able to provide for you." I'm the first in my family to go into an integrated world from a segregated world, and my kids are the first to go to integrated schools. For some, that doesn't resonate because from 1972 to present, there has been a deliberate move in America to make sure that our children are not educated properly, particularly in the area of literacy. 80 to 87% of African American students across the nation are below grade level intentionally, and often classified as special education learners. Let's not take that out of focus. 40% of all American children, white or black, cannot read at grade level. And so I took my technology background and decided that I would find a solution, because one of my observations were that our students are very, very technically capable and they master technology with no problem. But to not be able to read at grade level becomes a huge hurdle they have to get over. So I started the Hurdles Foundation to help children get over hurdles they just simply should not have to get over. No one on that board ever gets a penny from, can never cash a check, but we look for those opportunities out there to make investments in children that have hurdles they just shouldn't have to get over. I was brought up, and I'm sure you were too, that from those much has been given, much is required. I don't know of any human being that doesn't apply to. So when I was group vice president at Honeywell, and then I worked for Francois Mitterrand, the president of France, I took my technology background and at Stanford reached out in that community and ended up at Berkeley with a guy by the name of Dr. McCullum, and created a different approach to help students who are having problems with reading and math. We noticed that all the information about our students is summary data. What I mean by that, you get back a test score and it says at, above, or below grade level. It absolutely tells the teacher nothing of any value to work with that student to get them to a grade level. So we created a diagnostic. And to give you a comparison, if you had a problem and you took an x-ray, you see a little bit. But if you do an MRI or a CT scan, you can see it all. And that's what we do with the diagnostic. We want to know exactly where those flexion points of problems are and focus on those. Over 200,000 papers have been written on literacy. And one thing that they all agree upon, a person can learn how to read within 40 hours. Our program that we've designed is to supplement what has not happened in the educational system and to emphasize to parents who may also have some literacy issues that we can no longer just rely on the classroom. So we've been able to take the step further than Jeffrey Canada was able to, because his became a lottery because there was no way.
Jeffrey Canada? Oh my God, I love
Yeah.
that. Go ahead.
Very, very difficult to administer any program that he had to thousands of students that needed some tutorial help. In the New York public schools, focus was made to have 1 to 4. That would require about 225 tutors and not feasible, about $600 million investment.
So you said 225,000
1,000.
tutors
Correct.
to be able to implement that program.
Correct.
Yeah.
Bill and I had the pleasure of meeting with Chancellor David Banks, and we also presented to the mayor's staff our program. I'm proud to report that our program is approved in New York public schools, and the superintendents have the option of making it available for students who are behind in reading and math. Well, if it only takes 40 hours, then why is it that our students are not doing well in 5th grade all the way through 12th grade? And it's visually known now that the prison institutions make their plans based on those who cannot read at 3rd grade. That's just a real negative point. And so we've addressed that. We can size our program on the internet, and a student can take the diagnostic, and we create a program designed just to deal with their personal needs to become literate. Some students, they can become literate in less than 20 hours. Some, it takes about 40 hours. And that is all based on how much time do you spend on tasks and can you get an academic outcome. So within those parameters, we've been very successful. Let's Go Learn's done over 15 million diagnostics, over 3 million students in interventions, and we have a personalized program for every student that needs it. And I'll just wrap up on this part of our discussion. There are 8 subtest levels, and we continually hear the Institution of Education in America saying that students have lost learning. They do not have lost learning. If you do not master those subtest levels, then they will follow throughout life and there will be a deficit for that person. For example, if you only get to 70% mastery in a subtest level, when you start school the next year, you're going to be at probably 62, 63%. And that relates throughout any standardized testing that student's going to take. Our students under the Winnetka model, we shoot for proficiency in all of those subtest levels: decoding, phonics, phonemic awareness, sight words, which you should have completed at 3rd grade, 8th month, and spelling, and of course, comprehension. We're told that our students have a comprehension problem. They do not have a comprehension problem. The test that they're taking has vocabulary they're not familiar with. So to your point, I'm reading a document, ask a question about it. I can't answer the question because the definition of those and use of those words are not in the vocabulary. I had the pleasure of meeting Magic Johnson at St. Cloud State University a few years back. And he told a story of after he had graduated from college. It was very embarrassing when he signed his first contract because he couldn't read. And his mother intervened, and in a short period of time, after all those years, he was able to read. Well, then how did he get that for it? How do many persons get that for? They have to use their verbal skills and stay away from the interaction of literacy. And it was very, very touching because here's a real life example of someone who's extremely successful across the board, acknowledging that was turned off to reading when embarrassed in front of a group of other students, and just all through life was moving away from literacy. 40 hours, only 40 hours.
Wow.
So, I was very honored when Bill introduced us, Lowe's. The work that you're doing there in New York should be replicated all across the country. There is no shame in telling the truth. This is a deliberate activity going on. When I grew up, and there were no kids at our school that couldn't read. Not 90% of our kids were in quote unquote special education programs. And our educators should not become defensive because there's a computer program that in a very short time can help their students make it to grade level. I'm honored to report to you that my wife taught for 33 years. She never had one student come through her classroom that left her classroom that couldn't read.
Right.
Now, she says to me, and she said, you know, the attack has been at every level, new programs every year, start all over, throw out what you're doing. Master teachers know that many of the programs that are in the public schools today were tested and tried 40, 50 years ago, and now repurposed that will never lead to a academic outcome. So the state standard systems, all of the money is being spent in the wrong areas. Why give a student test prep when they don't have the prerequisites to read?
Well, yeah, that's
In the first grade, and I'll close on this one. Why are our kids being put in first grade materials when they didn't have pre-kindergarten and kindergarten preparation? So the proximity of learning is extremely important, and development within the first 6 years. Reading is not that complicated, although they've made it the most complicated project in all of education. It's very simple to learn how to read. My oldest grandson, who just turned 7, his mother started reading to him, and I know you know what this is all about, Mrs. Moore, and flipping pages. He's starting first grade, and guess what? He's reading at a 5th grade level. And the only reason is that he has a lot of excitement about things that he's interested in. He just got into what are the flags of the world? Who are the presidents of the world? And it's all because he's excited about reading. So having said that, I commend you on all the work that you're doing, and we need to get the word out. We have to destroy the gloom and doom for our kids, and we have to meet them with solutions that will help them get beyond the crisis that they're facing, which is the average day in a school, K through 12. Nutrition is the first. Our governor, who's running for vice president, made it possible for every student in Minnesota to have free lunch. In some schools, the second bell is the emotional trauma bell, and it carries the rest of the day, and they start the process all over. And many kids don't come back to school because they ended on a bad note. What we found is that if we can get a very quick infusion of our program, things change drastically because now those students can read materials. They can participate in small and large groups and not be embarrassed. And I had one kid say to me, and I'll never forget this, Mr. Overton, you're disrespecting me. And I go, what's that? You talk like white people, Mr. Overton. Really? I talk like who I am. And so a lot of things that you mentioned early in the podcast, we need to take note, and we need to fall in line and help our leadership in any way that we possibly can to meet the objective. The objective is not to spend our entire life trying to learn how to read when we can do it in 40 hours. So I thank you for letting me go in my tirade here. But
Yeah,
You got a lot of questions coming your
you're
way.
welcome. And I'll say this because we got a number of questions, right?
sure.
And back maybe a year ago, I was, up in the morning. My wife has just left, and the television was on the news, and LeVar Burton came on with a special guest, and they were introducing the right to read, right,
Right.
as a civil rights act, right, because they're saying that we're being, in terms of the culture, disrespected by not having kids read, and they did a whole documentary which they put on, and you could get for 3 days, you could get it for free. So I started sending out to teachers, principals. I mean, the organization I was in, the King Movement, I sent it out to the president of the King Movement, because to me, this was the number one issue. Because if you cannot read and you can't comprehend what you read, everything you do, I mean, I don't care if it's technology, basketball, dance, I mean, science, history, everything requires reading, and it requires the ability to comprehend what you read and the skills to write it down. Right.
Yeah.
And I just started sending out to everybody because it was a window before it was closed. Right. And then you had to start paying,
Right.
so because they have to support it, you have to grow it. And then they started doing special, they started doing it in special theaters, special places, special cities. And so I went to the one because evidently you mentioned the chancellor of New York,
Right.
right? Evidently somebody must have sent it to him. He watched the documentary, and next thing you know, he called all his principals,
Yeah.
right? And I went to the city. All the principals was there,
Yeah.
right? And they showed the whole documentary on the right to read, and he made a commitment, right?
Yeah.
Number one, he made a commitment that by the time every kid in New York City graduates, they will learn to read. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, I thought that was the goal.
The beginning.
I thought that was the goal from the beginning, but now that he said it, I was like, okay, let's do this thing. So now there was a system of reading that we had. You mentioned phonetical sounds, phonics, so forth and so on, because that's the thing that changed me, right?
Right.
In a remedial class, my freshman year going into my sophomore year, I was on that. I didn't even know what a computer was at the time, but I was going through these systems, sounding out words, so forth and so on, that helped me get to my ability to read at grade level, right? So that I could go on and excel. So they took phonics and phonetical sounds out the system, and people got paid a whole lot of money to put that other system in that they now say doesn't work. Now we're going back. Now everybody's saying across America, we're going back to phonics. We're going back to phonetical sounds, right? And so I wanted to say that before these questions pop up. What's the questions here?
I just want to make a quick comment. When they went to whole language, it was supposed to be a shortcut. I flash your card and have an apple on it, and you sound it. But before you even get to that, the most effective way to start for everyone are the 44 sounds. And if those 44 sounds are recorded on the brain early on, they're there for a lifetime. Once you get past the record stage of the brain, plasticity is still there, but to get it, you have to do something that alerts the brain that this is extremely important. And they have not wanted to acknowledge that for like the last 50 years. And many students learn how to read on their own at some point. The teachers that we have, in many cases, not all, are information providers. They have no knowledge on how to actually teach reading from the science of reading. So they're trying to gradually go back in, and the PD to get those teachers at a point where they can be effective teachers with students to teach them to learn is almost an impossible hurdle. That's where technology in the toolbox, if put together correctly, can help accomplish two things. One, the student becoming literate, and educating the teacher at the same time on how to be effective to teach reading. So if you have a daughter or son and they're in school and they're not engaged and they're not excited about learning, It's not them. It's the system that they are engaged with, and they've come to a conclusion it does not work for them. And that's what we really have to address for many. We put this program we have in the Tennessee State Prison System, and there were people there that said it will never work because we got kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, all the way through 12th grade. We have people now coming out of prison. The recidivism rate for those that took this program is almost zero because they can now read. All the tests that we're talking about are at third grade level. There's no such thing as you take the test and if they're telling the truth that you are going to be reading at grade level to pass those tests. So it's rigged to convince everyone that there's a problem here, and end result after third grade, if you cannot read, you're a special ed student. Not true. You haven't had the tools presented properly, and you need a personalized learning program. We see other immigrants come to the country and they can't read, and the entire family goes into the reading program, and in a short period of time, they're able to take a civil service test or pass any of these, what I call state standard-based tests with high levels of achievement, when in fact, the only thing they had to do was learn the language of the vocabulary. If you take any student that has a comprehension problem and you actually get into what is their vocabulary and construct the test with their vocabulary, you'll discover the brain doesn't have a comprehension problem. It's only when they're presented with materials that they have no knowledge of and no mastery of. So we master every one of those test levels. We use gamification with our program because we know kids are very excited about computers and games to get to 90+% in those areas. In math, there are 44 subtest levels. So if you're doing decimals or whatever, and somebody says your child has a fraction problem, they don't have a fraction problem. You have to go back sequentially and find out where they missed that lesson or didn't get the comprehension they need, and then move forward, and it all disappears. But there are 44 subtest levels in math. All kids in America today, better than 60%, can't do simple math at 12th grade.
So here's some questions here.
Sure.
Does this program show the teachers the questions and types were missed?
The teacher can drill down on any student and see where the lack of performance is, and they can also see when that student passes the threshold and is now proficient. So it's a formative system. Once you do the diagnostic, the work that's being done by the student to correct those areas that have deficiency are available to the teacher to see. And that's why it's a great teaching tool for teachers. We had a lady who graduated from Vanderbilt University, and she had a teacher's prep, and she called and said, can I use the program with my 4 students who've only made a 13? I said, sure. Her name is Cynthia and Fitzgerald. She called me back 2 years later. She said, Mr. Overton, they just took the ACT. We got the results back. That's like 3-4 weeks later. And the lowest girl made a 24 and the other 3 made a 26. And everybody thinks that maybe somebody cheated. How did this possibly happen? So I explained to her that with the diagnostic, we aren't going over all the curriculum. We're going over those areas where the deficiencies are. And that's why it works so effectively, because students have gone through these remedial programs and they will tell you, I don't want to do that program anymore. We don't say you're taking the Let's Go Learn program. Today, we're going to unlock reading. And every time you unlock a reading lesson, that means your proficiency's gone up. You have an incentive over here that you can get in return. Well, if I would go back to when I was in school, you've been in class all day long. Why do you want to go after school to a remedial program?
Okay. Yeah.
I explain that to a kid. They get it real quick. You won't have to go to after school.
Right.
Oh, by the way, you're not going to play basketball, football, run track, and do extracurricular activities and be told at the end because your academics are low, you can't be on the court, on the field.
Yeah. So
And so then kids started to smile very quickly when they walk in that classroom, and now they can read. And 40 hours before they couldn't participate, just sit there. It's a revelation for the teacher and the classroom.
wow. So what makes your program stand out from programs like I Ready Incorporated?
Well, that's a great question. iReady is a very interesting program. iReady, the company, actually started out marketing the Let's Go Learn. Let's Go Learn had great technical development people from Berkeley, Dr. McCullum. They didn't have a sales force. And so the people at their company started selling it, and they did quite well. At some point, they decided they didn't want to continue on with Let's Go Learn, and they took the academic piece, which they had a contractual right to, and the diagnostic, and they named it iReady. Now, think about this for a minute. You're going to tell a student, I ready, I be okay. Now we're getting into a different version of language, but so it may be. We continue to develop the diagnostic, and it's superior to their diagnostic. NWEA, we had a good friend named Glander, and he had an algorithm that would get to the bottom of the deficiency. And when NWA, which is a nonprofit out in Seattle, got the program, they were able to make hundreds of millions of dollars because they only tell the district the probability of what the success looks like.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a student on any program and at the end of 6 months to a year, they haven't made any progress, you should ask the educator, why are they still on that program? If iReady is working for the student, we say great, because the origin and the development of that program started with Let's Go Learn.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good program.
Yeah. How is this program made available to low income students and teachers?
Well, let's say in the New York Public Schools, which we are on an approved list, the list price of this program is $124. Their discount is at 44%, meaning that it's $70 for reading and $70 for math. But that includes unlimited diagnostics and other support that's required for the student. That's just a fraction of what they have in their budget in the New York Public Schools. There are 1 million students in that district. 758,000 can't read at grade level, mostly between Hispanic and Black. And if you go to the 4-to-1 ratio, many kids just simply don't get access to the programs they need to be in. So it's a lot cheaper than the other programs because they are into their programs for multiple years. On a one-on-one basis, I would say when you add up all the costs of professional development, not having a diagnostics, fumbling around in the dark to find out that Jesse doesn't know his sight words and he's in the 5th grade. They eventually get there, but by the time they get there, the student's turned off and not wanting to be involved in the program. But financially, there's no problem. I mean, it's the use of the federal Title I dollars, the misuse of those dollars that's really causing the problem.
Well,
So a parent goes to a teacher conference, for example, they never get to this discussion. They always end up in a behavioral disorder discussion. And then when you drill down to that, if you don't start the day off right with a success, you can't end the day and expect to have a good one tomorrow.
yeah. And what happens in terms of the costs or in regards to individuals, your individual families that want to get involved with the program? And what's the other schools that's out there? Charter schools.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we give an example in New Jersey school system. They bought into Let's Go Learn and they had phenomenal success. We have charter schools, private schools, homeschoolers, um,
You got
parents.
boys and
Parents.
girls club, after school programs.
Yeah, we have Nashville Boys and Girls Clubs are using it. Um, Madison Square Gardens was using it as well as yours in New York. But there's a plethora of boys and girls clubs and after school programs. And in Suncoast, Florida, we had phenomenal success there in the Boys and Girls Club, as an example. Charter school in Nashville, uh, we took the one that was at the bottom. In 11 weeks, we got them off the bottom, and they had the highest math and reading scores on the state test, which was a combination test that they made just for the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, and I want to get Bill Henry, who's a partner in this, to join us. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Lois. How are you?
I'm good, man. No complaints. Good to
Okay.
see you guys. That's good.
And it's equally good to see you as well. And again, as Jesse said, we thank you for affording us the opportunity to come on and talk about SkyLearn. Let's go learn.
Yeah, so let's get into some more SkyLearn and how people can get involved with the program.
Okay.
I think I got some shots up there, some things from the mission. We're gonna click on a couple of things that the mission of SkyLearn. Talk a little bit about the mission, you guys, and talk about some of the SkyLearn objectives. Yeah, and then you got the whole thing here on the from the steps. Our circle of learning. How it impacts educators, administrators, parents and caregivers. Yeah, so yeah, get into it. I mean, yeah, you jump right into it. I mean, Jesse's been doing a wonderful job already. I mean,
Oh, well, that's questionable.
Jesse is the
Pick
right.
up on these issues, but when we talk about caregivers, the pandemic was devastating because many students that their parents were incarcerated and the caregiver then passed away. They not only didn't have a caretaker, they became homeless, and so uh, it's really something to take in consideration. When that happens and dysfunctionality happens in the family, you need a real mentor. You need someone to come into that family and it's going to be with that family at least one day a week and have a support staff to solve the problems that that student should not have to face. But as Bill can tell you, teachers are actually relieved once they know that the program will get an academic outcome. They've been through a lot of programs and they haven't worked. And they're very frustrated. If you have 30 kids, how much time in a day do you have to work on a personalized program for Jesse when you have 29 other kids that also need personalized programs? So they end up writing IEPs. We were just approved by CASE to be the number one diagnostic. And their comments, they haven't seen a diagnostic, not even iReady, that you could really rely 100% on an IEP. If you misdiagnose a kid, what's that liability to the district? Lawsuits. And there have been cases that have gone down where they've been proven that the diagnostics were not there, the outcome objectives were not there, but more importantly, the way they defined the deficiencies were not correct. And the damage done to the student is not that they cannot read only, is that they have been convinced that there's something wrong with them and they will never be able to function as illiterate. So that's part of that. But I want to get off the diversion. Bill, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I was going to
Yeah.
say to Lowe's that I'm glad that he afforded you the opportunity to be able to talk about, SkyLearn, Let's Go Learn extensively because as the founder and everything, he knows that. My involvement has been actually to support Jesse in any way that I possibly can. We were introduced by a mutual friend, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s chief of staff, you know, and is currently the chairman of the board of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So he introduced us because, my background is technology. information technology, telecommunications, and infrastructure technology. As Jesse had mentioned, he had worked at Honeywell, as a senior group vice president, and um, Dr. Lafayette thought that it would be a good idea to bring the two of us together. When he introduced us, and I learned about the things that Jesse was doing, I told him I would like to support him in any way that I could because there was a need, uh, uh, a dramatic need within our communities to do these kind of things. So, basically, I work, to try to open up doors to my uh, contacts, who are working in the educational arena, which is how, I ended up introducing Jesse to you and vice versa, the two of you to one another. So, they've got a program. There are definitely, as a matter of fact, let me back up and just, anecdotally tell you that, we've met with numerous people at the highest level within the New York City Department of Education, from the chancellor to deputy chancellors of teaching and learning, the chief of curriculum and instruction. I mean, we've had 9 meetings with them, and we've met with 10 different people there. One of them was the associate director of special projects in the division of specialized instruction and student support, which means that she was working in the area of special education, and was totally impressed with how Let's Go Learn Skylearn does things as opposed to some of the other uh, service providers that they're currently doing business with. So we're hoping to be able to establish a relationship with them whereby we can explain, like Jesse said, if you've been doing something for a period of time, 6 months or longer, and not getting results, will give us the opportunity to show how within a limited time frame we can make a difference. And we have all of the empirical data that can back all of this up.
Yeah, I remember my wife. She spoke a couple of times, a couple of messages called the eclectic perspective. Oh, oh, early in the morning we jamming early in the morning.
No, that's so rude. I hate this. I hate my phone.
Was that Love Come Down?
Love come down.
No, yeah, I just
Hey,
followed it.
cause
I followed
hey,
it up. Yeah.
what you guys are doing is love, man. I mean, when love comes down,
Oh,
but
I get too serious. You can see the frown on my face. I mean, this is very serious.
oh yeah, without a
And
doubt. Um,
for another example, um, we have parents who can't communicate with their kids because their kids are on work that needs help at home. And what we've done is just made it available for them, no one looking over their shoulder. And in a very short time, they're in a position, literacy and numeracy, to at least have a decent conversation and direct their child to other individuals that can help them with their homework. But when a student doesn't show up the next day, that should tell somebody something. And if you miss 2 days or 3 days of truancy, and it's because you can't participate, then you're on a different track and you end up in a different navigation system on a daily basis. And at the end of the day, it was like you said, did you read those books this summer? No. Why? I don't want to talk about it. Yeah.
right.
And I
So
think, Lowe's, what's beautiful about this podcast is that, you have your listening and, audience out there. Uh, they can go onto the website that you showed and look at all of the information out there, what the capability things that they can do, what kind of advances have been made with students who are enrolled in special ed, students that dealing with issues like dyslexia, which is something that caught the attention of Mayor Adams in New York City because he's come out and said that he was dyslexic growing up as a student. So the capabilities to do that, they can go to their schools, to the teachers and to the administration there, and tell them, are you aware that this program exists? And if not, maybe you should research it and maybe get in contact with Jesse so that they can learn more about it and how it can be implemented locally within their school district.
Yeah, and one of the statements I was making in before the song came on was I was talking about the eclectic perspective. I mean, there I'll use like some basketball analogies. I mean, there's a lot of trainers out there, right?
Right.
And so you have to find the one that's going to cause for you to get results. And so eclectic means not one size fit all,
Right.
right? With iReady, it may fit for somebody else, but here's the crazy thing: there's so many students, so many parents, so many teachers and administrators in schools, right? And it's
Right.
competition. I mean, and it really isn't competition. Everybody just trying to help,
Yeah.
right? And so when you put it out there, when you give an opportunity, you're giving somebody an opportunity,
Right.
right? You're paying a lot of money to somebody, and like you say, the bottom line is the results. I mean,
Right.
so I want to put on the table a number of things. I want to see what works in this school, what's working over here. If it's not working, right, I got to find something that works,
Right.
right? So, I won't close the door because I got this one, right? I got to say, okay, well, they're working good, but let me try over here. Let me put this in here as a project. Let's see, and like any other competition,
Right.
right? Cream comes to the top. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's working, if you're getting a higher results, I mean, then you should be supporting that. You should be investing in that.
So Lowe's, what happens in this world is somebody says, my child's on Let's Go Learn and it's not working. I want to do something different. And then the vendor will say, what's wrong with the program? Why isn't it working? And the vendor says it's lack of fidelity. All of these programs have the ability to work if they have the right interface with an educator who's a master teacher. What I'm going to say is not in the best interest of my company, but 90% of the teachers are not master teachers anymore. And they don't want to admit that. If we were to go to a truly competition-based business and say, you only get paid for results, all those companies would shut down tomorrow. Sylvan Learning had a franchise program. African Americans were the largest participant with them. Still, yet 80 to 87% of all our students are below grade level K through 12. So imagine I'm making an indictment about everybody in the system when you have a number that large, and people who are paid every day that have advanced degrees should have solutions to these problems. They don't have them, and everybody kicks it down the road for someone else to deal with. I would gladly take on any of my competitors that have had students, let's give them a year, and they still aren't performing. And say, there's no financial problem here. You just misspent the money. Pay for those that you get results. And you're going to get a different result every time.
Right.
The PD in most districts is not working. Teachers will tell you, I have too many requirements. I have to teach the standards today, whether Jesse has the prerequisites for them or not. I have to take Jesse in first grade and put him in the first grade materials. He struggles because he didn't have pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. We get to second grade, he's struggling. At third grade, I have to declare him a special ed. Now, he's not in the real special ed classes, but we get more compensation from the federal government under Title I. Okay. And there's another added layer of problem within the community. Our communities are stressed for opportunity to make a living wage. So don't be surprised the guy who does weatherization shows up and says he has a tutoring business. And these vendors will go out and they will set them up and they will hire some people and they will stab at it, but they will not be successful. It's time to not focus on the schools as not performing, it's time for the families to take control of making sure that their kids go to school and are ready to read. With online programs, it's easy. I have not found one African American student who was below grade level that has not mastered the smartphone. The teachers haven't. We want to have a little test about academic ability versus technical academic ability.
Baby,
And
that
so this,
1-year-old baby took your phone and was swiping it back and forth. He won.
Yeah. My
She won.
granddaughter, she won. She
Yeah.
was like, "How you get my phone open?" I just want to know that. At one, how you take a video? You be taking videos, just video and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, because they do have the capacity. Our young people have the capacity from birth,
Yeah.
right?
You
To
know what,
nothing wrong with the brain.
there's
No
an old
problem.
saying that, about talking the talk and walking the walk. One of the things, I've been working with Jesse for a number of years, supporting his efforts. And he said on multiple occasions that he would take the worst performing school in the worst performing district and work to turn it around. So he's not saying give me any school. He said give me the worst, and let the results speak for themselves. Um, he had mentioned something earlier about CASE, and CASE is actually the Council of Administrators of Special Education. And CASE, if you go to the CASE website, you go to the Let's Go Learn website, they have an endorsement. And on the endorsement, it says, we endorse every aspect of every program provided by them. And, your listening audience can actually go there. I don't have access to the website. While we're talking, maybe Jesse can talk. I can look it up, and you can have them scroll that across the screen. But it's right there saying uh, how heavily and confidently they endorse the program, and that speaks volumes as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, and I think the thing is look, there are situations out there. They're like great trainers. Like there's great things out there. You're just saying, hey, look, we got something that works. Here it is,
Yeah.
right? And people can get access to it. I think we just put the website up.
Yep.
You remember Adrian Peterson, right?
Yeah, I remember Adrian
Great,
Peterson.
great Minnesota Viking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He tore his ACL. A brother said to him, the league's going to have their doctor involved. You're going to have the best surgeons involved. Before you go to surgery, come and see me. Adrian went against all the wills to this person to see him. He said, we have to find out what caused the tear before you have the surgery so that we can make sure that that doesn't happen again. So this brother put him through his program. He had the fastest recovery, and the ACL did not tear, it strengthened because he found out what caused the problem. That's what we do with this diagnostic. If you didn't do our intervention and you got the diagnostic, you have the roadmap of the specific things, scope and sequence that student needs to get beyond where they are and be proficient. And so a parent who knows not how to read, having a conversation with the teacher, can say, how are you going to address this roadmap? Do you agree that my son or my daughter has these deficiencies? And that's a truth to power moment there, because the teacher, if they're truthful, they don't have time to do it. And putting that person's kid in special ed is not the right thing to do. So then you look for alternatives. And the only criteria that should be used, if I have time on task, do I get the academic outcome that's needed? And you eliminate all these problems. Then the vendor can't say to the district or the school, it's a fidelity issue because you didn't do the program the way we recommend that you do it. Okay? So our awareness, it means more to me than just our intervention, although our intervention does work. We had this very case at Santa Barbara School District. When I first looked at this, I was working with Dr. William F. Miller, who was over at Stanford Research Institute, who introduced me to Dr. McCullum over at Berkeley. That's kind of rare. I said, I want to go to Santa Barbara. It's kind of off the beaten path. So, well, there won't be many kids there that need this program. Well, it turned out there were quite a few non-performing students. They were able to get the return in less than 40 hours. They got a grant for the entire school district, and it became the basis for what do I purchase to put in my toolbox. Okay, so there are programs that are for free out on the internet today, but they're of no use unless you know which program and how that program fits into the personalized learning needs of that student. So first objective is to get everybody to look at their own situation and say, is it working for my son or my daughter? Is my son or daughter really a special ed student, or they need to go back and get the tools and skills that they're capable of and then move forward, as opposed to just let's cover it up. We're graduating. Now I've been accepted at Maryland or whatever university in sports, and I have to take a test to qualify to get into academics in the school. So I use up my first 2 years or whatever of eligibility, only to find out that I don't qualify because I can't meet the academic standard.
Wow.
Yeah. So I welcome that discussion. No vendor out there should want to do damage to students just to make a little per diem. They need to better qualify what the conditions of use are of their programs. And that way the parents can make a decent decision about what are the next steps to get where we need to get. And if it can be done in 40 hours, why would we not want to do that?
Yeah, that 40 hours is, yeah, I hear you. And, because one of the things that, a lot of people don't, they want you to work with their kids. I'm talking about sports now,
Yeah.
They want you to work with their kids. Well, I always say, look, hey, first of all, I got to before I work with you, I got to evaluate you.
Right.
Right. I got to know what it is. What's your strengths and weaknesses? What level are you? Right. In terms of your development.
Right.
Because then I know what to do moving forward, to be able to help you exceed as an athlete. Right. You got to do an evaluation. And I think my wife and I, we both learned this, that it was even available with my son Isaiah, right? Treese, when Isaiah he was born with spina bifida. Oh. So he needed assistance and different things like that. And he went to school early, so that he can learn to be self-sufficient, right? Before he actually went into public school. Yeah. Right. And then he had a one-on-one. Right. And then he had IEPs and he had all these things. Right. He had speech therapy, he everything you could think of. I didn't even know, the diagnostics, the thing that he actually went through. I was thinking like, wow, he's going through this because he got special needs.
Right.
Right.
Right. But think about every kid, right, before they start, if there's a diagnostic.
Correct.
Right? I'm thinking like, my son I didn't even know this stuff existed in the school district. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what IEP was. I didn't know any of that. Did we know? You knew, Trees? I didn't know. But the thing is, all this stuff is in our school systems, to evaluate kids, not just to put kids in, and then start the learning process.
So here's a trap you don't want to get caught in. We talk about diagnostics. We put down we're diagnostic. All of our competitors say they're diagnostic. We put down a new feature. They all say they have that feature. Someone brought up iReady. iReady has a real neat thing for teachers, and that is they lay out the lesson plans on a daily basis for the state standards. So the teacher teaches that standard on that day, and it just goes down the track, and you're either on or off. Okay, that's a phenomenal piece. NWEA tells the district what the probability of failure is going to be throughout the district. All summative data at above or below grade level. At minimum, all these companies, they have some neat features in their programs, but they're totally misdirected unless you have a real diagnostic and you apply the diagnostic. And if the diagnostic is wrong, You need to know early up front. If we have a diagnostic that doesn't seem to be working, we need to know that immediately. We need to redo the diagnostic, and we need to stay away from the word test because our kids have learned that the test is an exploitation of them. They don't want to go to school and take a test. Why? Because it's putting them in a definitional space that they shouldn't be in. So we got to work around all of that. And at the end of the day, we want that student to get the best use of its time academically. And someone has to be responsible for that outside of the family, and the family has to drive it so that they aren't victimized by someone saying your child is a holy terror. We send him down to the social worker, and then the social worker sent him to the psychologist. And so he's spending in the afternoons in a program that's really teaching him ultimately to wear an ankle brace. Stay at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the scope of where things end up today. If you can't read a third grade, you're likely to go to prison. Prisons are overrun, and people are being put in there for things that are inappropriate sentencing. So we're going to have to teach Jesse some personal skills on how to control his emotional disorder. But when we go back to the beginning of that, it's not a normal disorder. It's one that's being brought because Jesse's not able to participate with other class members. And there's 3% of that class that will read at grade level regardless. Because if they're home, their parents are reading to them and they are getting what they need to go through.
Wow. Yeah, because I mean, I remember talking to my Passport to Manhood and talking to the young men and the Boys and Girls Club every week. You know, when I say, what does it mean when I say that they're building prisons because 7 out of 10 of you will end up there in the future because you can't read at grade level.
Right.
So when you look at the solution to not going to prison, the solution is reading. It's like you can't even comprehend that. Like if I could just sit down with my kid, begin to open up the books, begin to read, especially early. I mean, during the pandemic, I had the amazing opportunity to be retired and have my first grandson, right, and to have him with me mostly every day while his parents worked, right, and every day we on the floor since his inception, we on the floor with the alphabets. Right, and I'm going through, and we sounding down them, apple, and going, and then the next thing you know, he could, man. I mean, before he was even one, he know where an apple is. He could say apple. He could say bear. He can go through all and sound them out. I mean, he could just go through it, and he became a lover. And this is one of the things I want to close on, right. The one thing is I didn't love reading, right? I mean, I hated I hated education because I could not read, right? And I was afraid. And so when I got better at it, right? Then I started to enjoy myself.
Right.
And I started to accelerate in other areas. I mean, just think all my life, man, I was struggling, and then finally I wanted to play sports, right? And then I got into a program that, decreased my fear.
Yeah.
Right? And enhance my ability to comprehend what I was studying. And then now I finally get it. Now, I'm excelling in the classroom.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm a good student. Imagine what that made me as a player. I'm no longer worried about the test or
you're phenomenal.
Yeah, then now you could just go out and concentrate on the thing, and I just think it's a disservice if a kid can't love to read. And all year long we talk about loving to read, getting out reading and comprehension, why you got to have a book, why you need to build a library. Who's it? Miles Monroe talks about that,
right.
Have a library in your home.
Right.
Right. And why does Why does rich people have a library in their home and poor people don't?
Right.
Right? Because you start with when they're young, building books, reading to them learning to read back to you, and dealing with it all the way through. I mean,
Man,
it's fun
what
to
you
read.
just defined, Lowe's, is universal. It's universal. I can think of situations. I know Bill with his children. I remember being on the road coming home from France one weekend, and my wife says, "We got a problem." And I said, "What's that?" Jesse doesn't believe that he can do math. So I'm going in on Monday, and she's talking to me back and forth. And the teacher said, "It's just too much stress on him, and I don't think we should push him." Well, she had already determined that he couldn't do math. He turned out to be at Pepperdine one of the finest math students ever to attend the university, working in three major Fortune 500 companies as an analyst. And it was all because his mother was there when that decision was being made, and it did not stick because she would not accept it. Her approach was, well, how are we going to address this problem together? Because everybody in the family does math quite well.
Yeah.
That teacher had this attitude about African American students. He was Caucasian, and she didn't want to put any pressure on. She just felt they couldn't do that kind of work.
Wow.
So I mean, it's exciting subject matter, and I don't want to bore you with my frowns about this. But if you see I'm frowning, it's because it troubles me every night I go to bed that the kids are facing a hurdle they should not have to face. Right? They shouldn't have to sort out what's the starting point that's going to get me in the right direction. That should be a given. When I show up at school, and I shouldn't be penalized because I didn't have kindergarten and pre-kindergarten and somebody looking down at me as a zip code crack child. They should have a program that allows me to develop in the first 6 years, and I don't have a deficiency at third grade. You take these same kids day one, and in about 6 to 8 months, they have everything they need to be at third grade level. So that's the dilemma I'm faced with every day, and I think we're going to make some good strides forward because as the village becomes more educated, that this is not a disease. It's not curable. It's not even a disease. It's a fabricated circumstance deliberately to make sure that our kids are not on the court.
I like that.
And that's a good point that Jesse makes, and it kind of dovetail into what Lowe's had said before about building the prisons within certain communities. Let's look at it. With 15% of the population of this country, you look at the prison population, and we're way above, in many instances, 50% and more of the population. I think that Dr. King summed it up more than 60, 65 years ago. That identifying the problem, saying that illiteracy begets ignorance, ignorance begets poverty, and poverty begets violence. So if we want to, and what does violence do? That ends up, not a very good outcome, because when you have people of color, inflicting violence on one another, then you put one in the graveyard and one in the jail. So you've eliminated, and two families are affected by that whole thing. So it's important to decrease the violence and decrease the poverty by increasing literacy.
Awesome, man. I'm gonna let that be the final.
Well, let me just add something really quick.
And put that question back.
One of the
comment
things
back up.
that people need to recognize too is that if they end up in the jails, a lot of times the jails are actually built in rural communities where their representation politically has a lower number because of their population. But when you put the prisons in there, they count those people on the census, those prison people, and they get more representation in those areas because of the prisons that we're now populating with a lot of our people. And so if we could increase the education and decrease the amount of people in prisons, and the people are now able to vote in their own communities, you have a much powerful voice. But now you're in jail, you don't have that voice anymore, and you're now giving somebody else your voice because your body counts as representation in their community.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So I want to close with this, Monica. Monica Russell here. If parents took the time to read to their children 15 minutes a night, discuss, and it would help a great deal. Our students deserve for us to be intentional.
And Charlie says the prisons first started off being called correctional facility until they realized that they don't want to correct anything, especially if I can make money off people of color. Boom. Drop the mic.
Again, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to thank you guys, man. I don't think this is going to be the last time, right, that we'll jump on. I think this is just such an important, well, to me, it's the number one topic, when I see young people, today. So,
Lowe's,
go ahead.
I'm on the Twin City Public Television PBS affiliate, and a study of the tagline is media that can be trusted. In the pre-K to first grade, 62% of the viewers are African American children. So if you have content that is of value that we want communicated, we should consider that the audience is there and they're ready for that content. At the very entry level.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you guys. Jesse, I want to say thank you. Because you're in Minnesota. And you got up early on a Saturday morning.
Oh no! Don't go there. I'm embarrassed about that, but I would like you to come and your wife and family come out and visit us in January.
In January, I think I was there in January, and I didn't have my ice skates on.
We're gonna visit you virtually on the computer.
Yeah, virtually. And then I was a statue outside the stadium we was going to play in, right? And the thing was like a ball of ice.
None of my family, my sisters in Nashville, have ever been in January, and they said if you die in January, we'll come and see you buried in May. Bill, it's good to see you, Bill.
We said October. We want you to go and speak out into St. Paul and check out our son at Ain't Too Proud to Beg tour in St. Paul, Minnesota. So that is Lowesmore. You'll know who he is. His name is the same as his daddy. And he will be in Minnesota, I think I said October 5th to October 8th.
8 to 13th.
Oh, 8 to 13th?
Yep, October 8th to 13th.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to make sure I connect with Eddie if at all possible. I was a president of St. Paul branch NAACP for a few years, and I got a few friends over there, including the mayor. And when I first came here, they said we couldn't get elected with 3% of the population. We put in, of course, a mayor in both cities. And if we're successful with Walz becoming the vice president of the United States, the first black lieutenant governor will be in place.
The governor.
Wow. Nice.
Wow.
And now here's my story about Minnesota.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Ray Williams, may he rest in peace, played for University of Minnesota, along with Kevin McHale. He's on the team with Kevin McHale and Michael Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Klay Thompson's father. They were all on the same team in Minnesota. And I asked Ray, right? I was like, Ray, why did you go to Minnesota? I mean, it is so cold. Ray had a fear of flying.
Yeah.
Right? And so Minnesota took mostly buses. So he went to Minnesota because he didn't have to fly.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Did you know Sims that played out there at the university?
What's his first name? Sims?
Yeah. I'm trying to think his first name. He's from Ohio. Played under Musselman and all those guys.
Oh, yeah. Of course I know Musselman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Musselman. I played for Musselman in CBA. Yeah, and he came. He brought that team out there because on that CBA team that I played for was Tony Campbell.
Okay.
Was on the team. Scotty Brooks, Scott Roth.
Yeah.
right? All them guys went with him from the CBA to the NBA when he became the coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then one of my favorite players is Maya Moore, of course. I mean, she got the same last name. I mean, what can I say? And don't forget, I'm going to send you the information on my man True Pettigrew.
Okay.
Yeah, who's the person of diversity. You know, the vice president of diversity for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx.
The Sims that went to Minnesota, Jericho Sims went there, right?
No, you talking about the Timberwolves. He was Sims with the Timberwolves, right?
You talking about university?
Sims.
You talking about university?
He was the University of Minnesota.
Charles Sims was his name.
Charles Sims.
I was getting ready to say Charles Sims was the other one.
But what's his name went there too? Great Yankee. What's it? Winfield?
Yeah, Dave and I went to school together. Yeah.
Yeah, see? There you go, man. I know my stuff.
Short story. Dave had bought himself a beautiful top-of-the-line Mercedes-Benz and said, hey, why don't we all go out to this little club? And we did. It was 40 below. We came out. I got in my raggedy station wagon with all this rust on it. And he knocks on the window. He says, my car won't start. They didn't charge it up today before I got it from the dealership. I said, you want me to jump you? He said, sure. My wife says, don't. Oh, this is going to be, you're going to blow that car up. And gave him a jump. But Dave, well, it's like Kirby Puckett. You know? I met him when he first came to Minnesota through Bob Short. He said, it's going to be one of the greatest players ever. And I looked at Puckett and I go, no, I don't think so. Well, I was totally wrong. Sixth game of the World Series was sitting 2 seats away from the owners of the Atlanta Braves, and they kept doing this dumb chop.
Mm-hmm.
And
like the axe.
Yeah. Brother who was with U.S. West, wife Jeannie was from New York, and when Kirby hit that home run, this is what she did to them. And Dave Fonda got up and they left.
Oh man, well I thank you guys, man. Appreciate you for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hold on for a minute. I'm going to close out.
Okay.
So I want to say thank you to each and every one that support the Blueprint Podcast every week. Don't forget to like and subscribe, whether it be on Lowe's More the Blueprint on Facebook or Lowe's More the Blueprint on YouTube. And don't forget that we are on the Fire Stick, right? The Phoenix Network, and we also on Roku, and as well. So I want to say thank you. We're looking forward to doing big things as we go into this fall season, right? I'm gonna go through the fall and winter with a summer mindset, right? And I want to say, God,
we'll be going to Minnesota.
Yeah, I ain't going to Minnesota. That's one I'm not visiting, because you never know when you go there once the summer ends. But thank you guys. Love you. And I say this every week. If the Lord allow you to wake up tomorrow, make tomorrow your masterpiece. God bless you. And see you next week.
Thank you. Good day. Have a good weekend as well.
Thank you very much.
Good.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.